So today we are going to tie up a variation of a hare's ear guide's choice. It's just something a little different. I've had a lot of luck with it. It fishes really well. You can weight them out to heavy, or you can weight them light and run them without a bead too. So, and we'll get going. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do, guys, is pinch the barb on my hook. I like a little just needle nose pair of pliers for that. And then I'm running a 2.4 nickel bead. I'll run this pattern with a black bead, a gold bead, a black nickel bead. Really does not matter. I find that gold is a lot of flash sometimes, and I don't really like that most of the time. So, we're showing you guys today on a size 16 and a traditional nymph hook, whatever you guys want. It doesn't really matter your brand or your preference. But for thread, I am using Nano Silk 18-aught. Use your favorite thread. I think guys get too caught up in thread to really make a big difference. 70 denier, 125 denier really does not make a huge difference to me. For your tailing material, this fly started out with just marabou as a tail from a pack, and then I got a buddy gave me a whole bunch of turkey. So I've been using turkey marabou, which is just marabou, but it's all natural color, which is kind of a gray black. And what I do with my feather, this is a really nice feather, but kind of bulky. We're not going to use all of it. We're going to use about that much of it, so we can tie a couple flies out of this. I'm going to stroke that, get all my tips lined up. And for this one, since I got so many feathers on there, so many fibers, I'm just going to cut it off. I want that tail to be about a hook gap in length or a little more. Lay that on the top of my hook and put a couple wraps on it, make some adjustments to it. I don't worry about catching other feathers or anything. It's all going to get covered up. And I just wrap that back to the hook bend. So, when I'm tying that in, I grab my feather. Get the other feathers off here. I grab my feather and I actually pull it back towards me to keep it on top of the hook so it doesn't want to wrap around. And then I just see how it's going to look. And that tail looks pretty good. Wrap back up. And we're using, for wire, we're using Sculpin Olive in a brassy size. You can use whatever wire you really want, but I tie that in on the near side of the hook and I tie it back to the base of my tail. And I'm just going to make a W nose. So what I do is I pinch with one hand, I take a little bit in the other hand, and then spin it onto my thread. And I just want a nice slender noodle. And with this, I go all the way up to behind the bead. And I try to make somewhat of a tapered body, but it doesn't matter a whole lot, I feel like. Any of it really will be okay. Sometimes the trashier a fly is tied, the better it works. Sometimes a perfectly tied fly does not work great until you get a couple of fish to bite it and tear it up a little bit and get it kind of beat up. So if you have one that's kind of beat up to start with, it'll be okay. I'm counter wrapping that. Nice open spiral wraps. And they don't have to be perfect. Make them somewhat uniform, I think, or growing in size. Latch that down. And then I just helicopter that off. So, for the wing casing, I'm taking a turkey feather. It looks like that. You can use whatever you want. I pulled down just a nice chunk of it. If you don't have feathers like this, you can use pheasant or a turkey wing feather or whatever you can get your hands on. And I tie that in. Making sure it's on top of the hook and squared up before I reach in here with a set of scissors and trim it up a little bit. Now for my thorax underbody, I'm using Ice Dub Peacock Black. It's got some nice little shine to it. I don't like using peacock hurls themselves. I find them to be very fragile. I originally tied it with that, but since they are super fragile, I feel like a couple of fish and they'd come unraveled, or they would get pretty beat up pretty quick. And I feel this is just a tougher fly. And I make myself just a nice little bubble there. You could pull this over top and fish it just like that. And that'll catch fish all day long. But I like a soft hackle collar. So I just go in, find a good soft hackle, pluck one out. Now when I go to do this, I just take and strip the fuzzy stuff back ever so slightly. But I don't strip it all the way off. I just strip enough to where I can tie in from. And I lay that soft hackle so how it's going to lay on the hook and try to get it so when I wrap it, it'll fold back nicely. So I hold it like this, bring it right behind that bead, try to trap it at the same time. Which if you have to put a little bit of slack sometimes into your thread in order to do that. And I put a couple turns on it. Then instead of reaching it or plucking it out of there, I reach in with a pair of scissors and I give it a little snip. A lot of the times I feel like when I pull it or try to just pluck it off, it breaks or moves the feather in a way that I don't like it. So, and then I just strum my soft hackle back ever so slightly towards the tail. And if the fibers start going forward, I'm not too worried about that. But I like a full collar. So I put a lot of material on it. I do, a turn and a half to 2 turns, depending on my feather that I have. And see, now, normally, if you come in here like this and try to snip that out, it's kind of hard. But if you take your hackle pliers, leave it attached, you can pull your soft hackle back and down. And then you can come in underneath of it and really only snip out just the stem. Now I stroke all that back, put a couple more wraps on it, And then I just play with it and try to get it evenly spaced all the way around so it's got a nice collar on it. Then I grab my wing casing material. Try to get it all at once if I can. If I don't get it all, it's not the end of the world. Split that nice and even. Just like so. Put my finger behind there to hold it. Give myself a couple wraps. And then I pull everything up. Lay my scissors on my bead. Give it a nice cut. So, then I just do a 4 or 5 turn whip finish. And there we go. Now, you could add head cement, or you can put a little dollop of UV, anything you want on top of there. One thing I do is I don't do that, but I do come back in and pick my body out just a little bit. I feel like this is a buggier step. I feel like after they got hit originally, a couple of times it looked a little tad and beat up. Started to fish a little better. So I just come back in, rough it up with the backside of a needle, try plucking a little bit out of there, and there you go. Give them a shot. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully it fishes well for you wherever you're at, and have a good day, guys.